This show is proudly brought to you by the #Me Network. Access granted.
Kia ora, and thanks so much for tuning in to episode 68 of Access Granted, your weekly Kiwi tech and media podcast.
I'm Raj, my background's in film design, media and making things happen.
I'm Mike, and my background is explaining stuff, connecting people and getting things done. And you are here because you're a Kiwi that either works in or has a great passion for tech or media in New Zealand.
Episode 68. And this week we catch up with Ben DeFlew from All Accounted For. I met Ben through a mutual friend that raved about his skills and advice as an accountant. Ben has created an accounting firm that has moved into an advisory role rather than just counting beans all day, in this new age of cloud computing. They started using Xero when it wasn't cool. We also chat to him about the landscape and the pitfalls to watch out for when trying to get your own startup up and running. Right, so we're here at, where are we now? Willow Street at All Accounted For, meeting Ben DeFlew from All Accounted For. Hi, thanks for coming on the show. We normally, we'll get into the stuff that you get into at the moment, but the first question we normally ask is, what makes you happy, Ben?
What makes me happy?
Yeah.
Well, obviously all the obvious ones, kids and what have you, but and the wife, all that sort of good stuff.
Outside of all
family
that.
and all the rest of it. Golf, all that sort of good stuff. But in terms of business, seeing clients succeed, interacting with clients, and just watching their business grow, that for me is where I get the most enjoyment out of what we're doing here in terms of providing business advice and accounting.
So that's predominantly what you do. It's an accounting firm, but you have a consultancy sort of angle to what your accounting work is.
Yeah, well, the landscape's really changed over the last few years with the cloud. Now, with systems like Xero, it's capturing clients' data in real time, and it's the compliance side of accounting is no longer value add for our clients. So it's very much a change in focus and say, right, actually, now that compliance stuff is being taken care of and it's a lot easier to deal with, actually moving into providing more advice around how their businesses should be operating, key things like benchmarking, reporting on key ratios within that business. So we're talking gross margins, wage spends as a percentage of sales, but also looking for growth opportunities. So, and utilising social media as well. So it's become a massive part of all business in a modern society. So, we don't hold ourselves out to be those social media experts. That's you guys. But, we need to have some knowledge to be able to advise our clients and say, hey, you need to be looking at this. You need to be talking with people like Raj and Mike in terms of getting your business out there. So, That cloud side of things has really changed the landscape and allowed us to move into advising clients.
So you were running, if I can use the word traditional accounting, prior to the cloud.
Excel spreadsheets and whatnot.
Well, we're doing quote unquote accountants, which you say to most people, accountants.
Yeah, what most people would think accountant. Yeah, that'd be true.
Were you, how long before the Xero-y, cloudy stuff came along had your business going for?
So my background was I started in CA, did a couple of years overseas.
In CA?
Oh, sorry, Chartered Accounting, so public practice.
Oh, in California, cool.
Yeah, wish. Could have been there. Then a couple of years in the UK, the wife and I did OE and all that sort of stuff, came back, and then I was in corporate working for ANZ and Kiwibank for a while in their treasury markets areas. And pretty much from there I had a decision to make whether I wanted to stay on that sort of corporate side of accounting or get back into public practice, and I decided to miss the client contact side of things. So got back out into public practice in 2010.
Oh, okay.
So
Xero was around but very small.
Yeah, I mean, when I came back from the UK, it started in 2000. Well, so Rob Jury and Hamish Edwards were the two guys that were the drivers behind the setup of the company, and they came together in 2006. Had a version out there in 2007, and we started using it into 2007, beginning of 2008.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'd had a few clients before I went to the UK, a few on the side and that stuff, and then sort of picked up a few when I came back, and when I got to 2010, I had enough to really push out. So essentially, I've been using Xero for our business growth right from the get-go. So you were very much a Xero-focused practice here. I have a few clients, or a couple of clients using MYOB and QuickBooks, but the rest we've been able to get off those systems to a more user-friendly system such as Xero.
So were you doing the traditional accounting? I know before you went to OE, you probably were. So the change for you as a business was one that you went along the journey with them, really, or you just went, oh my God, this is changing everything?
Yeah, that would be a fair comment. Yeah, it really has been that change in the journey. The landscape's changed a lot, even in the time that Xero's been around, because really the first port of call for Xero was about making it easier to get that compliance services done. But as we've seen with all technology over the last few years, the whole landscape's what do they call it, dynamic shift. Big shift in terms of
disruption.
Yeah, disruption. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And Xero, we've been able to ride the wave with Xero in terms of being able to provide those additional services. And there's a lot of not just Xero. There's now something like about 450 add-ons that interface with Xero that can provide a lot of benefit to clients' business as well, drive some extra efficiencies for them and extra profitability.
So what made you choose Xero? At the time, everyone's going, oh, yeah, Xero's around. What is this thing, Xero? But from an accountant's point of view, you'd be sitting there going, well, this is really foreign. Where's my QuickBooks? So how did you make the decision to go for the cloud solution, or what sort of got you the idea of, hey, we should try this?
Yeah, my experience was Banklink and MYOB, and I certainly had the big thing for me was sort of Banklink initially, but then saw actually could do it a better way using Xero, so migrated those that I had on Banklink onto Xero at the beginning of 2010. We had a few clients on Xero, but then at that point we're just like, nah, everyone's going, move them across, kicking and screaming. We gave clients the option, but for them there was no change in their cost structure. They just saw that there was a better system and a better service from that perspective. So, not that that answers the question, the reason for doing that was around accessibility of information, ease of processing information. The clients could get involved with using the system. Okay, MYOB and QuickBooks, all those traditional systems, you needed to be an accountant to drive them. Whereas with Xero, it's been built with the non-accountant in mind. So anyone, even if they don't have any accounting experience or even accounts experience, can drive the system.
Mike's just put his hand up. I've had experience, and that's where I call on Ben to fix it all after I have a play on it. And now he fixes it, and it works fine.
And the great thing is you can't break it. Everyone's going to make a mistake at some point in time, or perhaps not do things in the most efficient way. But I'm yet to see something.
He's looking at me when he says that.
Yet to see a client do something that we haven't been able to unpick very quickly.
So that is being taken as a challenge by Raj, All right.
What else can I say?
Yeah, probably the biggest one would be around people deleting bank statements. Very hard to do. But
it's pretty hard.
But not difficult to fix. So we can still export bank statements from modern online banking platforms now and re-import them.
Just stuff them back in, yeah.
And we'd know if there's been a bank statement deleted because the bank doesn't reconcile anymore. So there's sort of checks and balances within the system to identify where there are issues as well. And they continue to enhance the system. I attended a roadshow just last week, in fact. And some of the enhancements are around the reporting, so there's going to be different ways of reporting through to clients, so we can show them different things within their management reports. There's also graphical representation of information that's coming. There's some high-level stuff in Xero now, but there'll be more of that in the near future as well.
So that's converting to pictures rather than lines and columns of numbers.
Yeah,
that works for me. It's good. Pictures are good.
You did right. Our experiences with the non-accountant clients, picture, as they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. And very much the same with a graph. And particularly if you're showing it year on year, and you say, okay, here's where you were last year or 2 years ago, and this is where you are now. It's very easy for them to say, oh yeah, well ahead of where I was last year or the year before.
And so the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was we have a lot of startups and people in tech listening, and you've had a bit of experience with startups, and I was wondering what are the sort of issues you've found over the years that really stick out in terms of things that we forget to do or problems we run into when we're trying to start up stuff?
I really should take a pen and paper and write this down.
We're recording.
Oh, yeah. Are we recording this?
That phone thing there? Yeah, see those waveforms?
Yeah.
It's recording.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is that how you
technology,
do
eh?
it? It's very clever.
One of the most common issues is people don't plan. So they have this great idea or they have a great opportunity to generate, a lot of cash, but they just don't plan. So, they might see, let's say they go out contracting, for example, in that IT space. They've been working on POE. Now they've got an opportunity to go out and earn $150 an hour, $200 an hour, whatever it is. And they're like, cool, I'm going to be turning over $200,000 a year, sweet. I'm going to spend it like there's no tomorrow, da-da-da. But they haven't planned. So how long? Firstly, how long's the contract for? If it rolls over every 3 months, what's going to happen at the end of the next 3 months? Yeah, it might be looking good to roll over then, but 6, 12 months beyond that. Similarly, in terms of, so you're going to have potentially all this extra cash. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to, perhaps invest into something else? Maybe it's some investment property, maybe it's some shares, that sort of stuff. And probably one of the most important stuff, have you put aside money for tax?
That's where they get you. Yeah.
There's an interesting stat out there that of businesses that fail, in the 2/3 of them that fail in their second year is because they've failed to plan for their tax.
Really?
Because the way things happen is, first year, you don't pay any tax.
Yeah.
So you've just got all this cash sitting in a savings account, or maybe not, because you might have spent it already. And then you come to year 2, the accounts have been done, and all of a sudden you've got this massive tax liability, and essentially you pay 2 years of tax in 1 year.
It's not first year free after all, like they pitch it.
Yes.
No, I mean, you can make it work for you.
Yeah.
Like if you've got your own home, you can sit in a flexi facility if you're disciplined and save yourself some interest, that sort of stuff. But if it's one of the things we stress with the clients right from the get-go is you need to be putting aside this sort of percentage. So we come up with a number based on what they're likely to be earning and say, right, you need to be putting this number aside for GST, income tax, ACC levies is another one that people forget about, so that they know and can plan for that. So tax is probably...
That's a common...
Yeah, it is, very common.
That's amazing, isn't it? And is that because the startups are generally young'uns and life's all sweet and I'm just building my business and I don't care about that? So why? Do you think
it's just...
Is it old people like me that don't...
We're mainly talking people who are sort of first time into business, so they just haven't had that sort of business experience, so they haven't had to deal with these sorts of issues, and that's why it's critical that people that are going into business for the first time are talking with an accountant right at the start. And not just in terms of tax planning, but also business structures, because that can be critical. If you're going into partnership with somebody, you need to make sure you've got things like a shareholders agreement in place. We've seen numerous companies fall over because the two partners have, they don't want to head in the same direction, or one wants out and the other one can't afford to buy in or buy that person out. Business plans. So it's all good and well. We're going to turn over, as I said, a couple $100,000 or $500,000 this year. What about next year? What do we need to do to keep that revenue stream going? Competitors. Where do we see this competition? You might not have any competition in year 1, but in year 2, 3, 4, that competition could be exponential. And that's the thing with modern technology now, is before for your competition to set up, it could take them 5 or 10 years to get to the same sort of level or the same offering that you've got today. But now people can copy that within months. So your competitive advantages in terms of its life is significantly shorter than it used to be, even 5 years ago. For that technology.
That's scary, eh? You've got to keep moving. Plan for it though, but keep moving.
So it's critical that that new to business are getting good advisors in place right from the get-go. Make sure that you've got that chartered accountant in place at the start. Make sure you've got a good banking advisor, because you're going to need one at some point. Even if you don't own a home or you're not looking at buying equipment or anything like that at this point, you will do it at some point in the future. And having that strong relationship with the bank is critical for getting money for something that you perhaps do want to invest into. Similarly, a lawyer. So as I said before, if you're a sole sole practitioner, essentially running a company or a business on your own, then there aren't too many issues there, other than you make sure you're looking out for things like public liability and so on. But if you're in partnership with another person or a team of people, it's critical that you get those, as I said before, shareholders agreement in place, but also roles and responsibilities so that everyone can be held accountable for what they're doing. And then setting up review committees, sort of every review meetings every 6 to 12 months, making sure that everyone's staying on task.
With the accountant and lawyer, you mean, or just internally?
It's always good to have your accountant involved, particularly if you're talking financial review. Obviously, if they've got you on a good system, we talked about Xero before, they're going to be able to produce real-time reports and advise you how you're going. And if you've got multiple owners in a business that are responsible for different areas, then it's very easy to report on those different areas within a system like Xero. So it's good to have your accountant involved and helping to report on how things are going, but also say, sort of challenge you, right, how do we get to that next level? What are you thinking about to, increase the revenue, 50, 100%?
Yeah. Which is the servicey part.
A lot of them don't do that, A lot of accountants just do the books, right?
Yeah.
And they don't do that advisory side of things, which is
the
important.
older generation, very much so.
Yeah.
Is that still the majority, would you say, out there? I'm pointing outwards, everybody.
I think the average age of a practicing or partner in an accounting practice is something like, it's high 50s anyway, from 60s. So those...
They're not using Xero on their iPad, are they?
No, they're not.
They're getting the secretary to
there's
use
always...
They dictate
Excel,
it to a little tape machine.
That's right. I saw that recently.
One of our team members here, who's been with us now for about 18 months, he'd come down from Wanganui, and even as long ago as 2.5 years, they had 2 computers in their entire office for a team of 10.
Wow.
So there's an example,
folders and paper everywhere.
there's an example of provincial New Zealand where, the so-called advisors just aren't keeping up with the technology that's available. So,
I'm speechless now. Wow.
So there is very much a generational gap between, chartered accountants of my age and those that are in the older school, the high 50s, 60s. And what's happening is it's making it very easy for us to bring new clients on board, because these clients are approaching those guys and say, hey, we've got all these modern systems, cloud systems, Xero, Workflow Max, stock systems, etc. on the cloud. We want to use them, and these guys go, no, we don't use it. We use MYOB, QuickBooks, or Banklink, or whatever. Sorry, can't help you.
It's kind of hindering your clients, really, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's affecting their business, because in 2 or 3 years they're not going to have a business because everyone will have migrated to the cloud. I think that's ultimately we're going to end up.
The old accountants, and I'm going to call them old now because we just described them as old.
We didn't use the word crusty old, though. So
we did not say crusty old.
No, we didn't.
Perhaps use, more traditional.
Traditional is good. Yeah.
The old buggers. Their business, is that predicated on that doing the bookkeeping stuff? And that's the part that fundamentally is being taken away. And then the newer accountants like yourself, there is a bit of that, but mostly the machines just grind away and do their thing.
Yep.
The services that goes on top, is that traditional services that you're growing, or you always had 50-50? Or is it like, if that bottom layer is going to go away, we better have something else?
It's something that's always been there. I mean, chartered accountants have always been able to provide good business advice and assist with driving business direction and business decisions. But they've been hamstrung by technology. And I'll give you one of the key examples is around benchmarking. So there's Waikato University do a benchmarking survey, and that information is available for accountants to buy and provide to their clients. Problem is by the time they get that information, it's 18 to 24 months out of date.
Whoa. So when you say just benchmarking information, what sort of stuff in there?
Yeah, so when I say benchmarking, so comparing key aspects of your business with industry average.
Oh, okay.
So how does your profitability compare to, let's say you're
other podcasters?
Okay, podcasters,
Yeah.
how does your profitability compare to other podcasters?
Yeah.
Expenditure, staff expenses, gross margin, cash flow, debtor days, all those sorts of things. And of course that changes depending on the type of industry that you're in. So builders that work with large corporates who might have retentions, their debtor days might be a little bit longer than say those in the service industry, or certainly those in retail where the cash is coming in every day.
Yeah. So you can go and get this report. You can ask for it.
It's more like a historical report.
That's right. 12 a year or a year and a half later, you'll get it.
Well, it's not. It's just that the information that they correlate. So the moment they pull the information from the Inland Revenue, and it's based on stuff that's loaded into tax returns. So you've got there's a couple of areas of concern. One is it's predicated on the information within the tax returns is correct. There's no guarantee there. I've seen plenty of examples where it's wrong. And two, it's just the time when you get that information. So, here we are in 2015. If you wanted the benchmarking information, it would relate to information that was filed in tax returns for the period ended 31 March 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is a lifetime if you're a startup in tech.
Yeah, well, you take Deering, for example, where the Fonterra payout's gone from, I think it was 825 or something last year, and this year we're now looking at, 365, 385. So, if you were trying to compare dairy farmer information with stuff from 2 years ago, it's just not comparable.
That's right.
The landscape's changed so much.
That's comparing sheep with cows.
And this is where...
oranges, nice.
So this is where add-ons to Xero, but also Xero themselves, are going to be able to really help out business and allow them to see who the best perform, or not who they are, but what is the best performing numbers within the industry group.
Yeah.
So how does their revenue compare with the best in class? How does their wage bill per staff member compare with best in class? And that ultimately helps the entire New Zealand economy because we become more efficient and generate more profit, which in turn we can reinvest into growing the entire country. So there's a company now that we looked at the Xero Roadshow last week, ranks.com, so RANQX.com.
Of course it is.
Bloody hipsters. Jesus, just because they can't get it right, they have to go.
So how they work at the moment is they get individual businesses and accountants, chartered accountants, to sign up, and then they can pull the information from those clients from Xero and put it into a benchmarking tool. Now, they standard deviation, so they'll chop off the outliers, both top and bottom, and then come up with the industry averages and best performers. So
as of now,
now,
isn't it? Like right this second, when I push that button, this is what it is.
Yeah, and it's easier to read. Again, even for the non-accountants, they
my hand went up again.
to be able to see how they're comparing, how they're operating.
Yeah,
and it'll make a big difference in terms of people being able to grow their business. So that organisation, I think they've got 5,000 New Zealand businesses on that system now. So obviously they need to keep building that database, but in some key industry groups they've got good numbers. So builders, for example, they've got something like 250. Again, not a lot, but you get into a point where the data is more reliable.
Yeah. That's the key. Yeah, I think it's more relevant, right? Right there. Like you say, hit a button and you've got the current valuable information.
So how's that going to challenge the government departments whose jobs is to sit there with their quills doing it now?
Well, and this is something that Xero's been actively working on because at the moment you get this 20-page paper report from Statistics New Zealand that you've got to fill out for certain businesses. Similarly, all the IRD forms that you've got to fill in, wage forms, GST forms, income tax forms, etc. Xero has the ability to push that information through to the government departments now. Obviously, it's just a matter of mapping it up so that it goes into the right areas. So ultimately, I think that's where we're going to end up probably in the next 5 years. We'll have a situation where the data will just come from your online system and flow to the government.
Yeah.
And that's
so you don't have to fill in any more forms.
Well, that's the plan.
I'm loving it.
And that is part of the IRD transformation as well.
Yeah.
MYOB and Xero are the two key partners to make that happen at the moment. So that will happen.
Right.
Eventually.
Eventually, right.
Yeah, that should be the same for all paper filling exercises. Already there's with BNZ, there's a pilot program with Xero at the moment, where, if you want to apply for finance, you can actually produce a report at Xero and push it straight through to the bank into their credit system, and they can evaluate the numbers. So it goes into the appropriate spots, and they can evaluate the numbers and turn around a decision much quicker than they have in the past.
Very cool.
That's nice, eh?
So it's not just taking out, starting to push back into places to say, look, it's value. I remember Rod saying that, Xero basically knows more about the economy than any government department.
They have all the info,
Ministry of Finance, it's like, I can push the button right now and tell you exactly how we're doing.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting stats I've picked up from some of the Xero roadshows over the last few months was one around the number of businesses in New Zealand. Generally we hear there's around 400 to 450,000 small, medium-sized businesses in New Zealand. Xero, through the work that they've done, they believe that they've got around about 25% of the market. So they've got 150,000 small, medium-sized businesses are now operating on Xero in New Zealand. They think the number in terms of small, medium businesses in New Zealand is closer to 600,000.
Wow.
So we're also starting to get some more reliable information around what's actually happening in the economy. So in terms of your comment, you're bang on the mark. Xero is getting to a position where they would have better knowledge than a lot of the government departments around what's happening in the New Zealand economy.
And it's good that at some point it's going to float back, all anonymous and blah, blah, blah. But it's a big challenge.
At least we'll know stuff rather than just guess,
Yes.
People guess a lot.
Or it's the timeliness of it as well. I can tell you right now, it's going to be a challenge, that rate of change, which, we started talking about. You grew up with Xero, basically, you as a business. So that rate of change is natural for you.
Yeah, it is. And that's where, coming back to the question they originally asked around new to business, if you're starting on that journey right at the outset, it makes it a lot easier to embrace that technology or that technology enhancement as the years go by. Things like, your websites now, it's almost critical for all businesses to have a website. And it doesn't need to be overly complex. Obviously, if you want to sell services or stock or what have you on the website, then there's going to be some complexity to it. But for most service-based businesses, just having even a one-pager or a two-pager with contact information is sufficient. You've got that presence and footprint. Yeah. And you guys will know this better than me, but in terms of the likes of your Google rankings and that sort of stuff, the more information that you're putting out there, the higher you're going to be up. So, things like blogs and what have you are key. And you've got a number of different feeds, Facebook, your Twitters, all that sort of stuff, where if you're blogging into your website, you can just have that information feeding out to the wider web.
Absolutely.
So, and it's not that complicated. So again, if you're getting into that sort of stuff right from the get-go when you're starting a business, it's going to be very easy for you to keep that up to date going forward.
Just like creating a habit, right? Going forward. You said a magical word.
Favourite phrase.
Corporate bingo. But that makes sense. So you can just.
So if you have, the tech startups and the young uns probably should know that. But if you get a business that's either slightly more mature or one that comes from a completely different industry, farming stuck in my brain now, who may not know any of that. Is that the sort of services that when you say, I can set you up on, as you've just done for us, we can set your bank account up or your company, corporation, and blah, blah. We can do all that, and we can get the accounting stuff going, and the machine's talking. Now let's talk about this. Is that...
Yeah,
talk about that as well, the whole setup,
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, all that sort of stuff. We talked about business plan before, and we're talking about, identifying competitors and what have you, but also marketing. So we're talking through all those key aspects within a business plan with clients. As I said, we're not necessarily the expert in those, but we've got knowledge of them, and we can point you in the right direction and say, hey, this is somebody that we deal with and that our other clients have dealt with. Deal with these guys. They will give you, 100%.
The best advice on practitioners.
Absolutely, on how to do your marketing and branding, logo development, that sort of stuff. Talk with these guys; these are the experts. Insurance, we talked about public liability before, but even things like material damage. What happens if the building you're in burns down and all that sort of stuff. Talk with these guys, tech guys. Backup data, as we've talked about, is critical in a modern business. So if you've got all your data sitting on a server in your office and the office goes poof, there goes all your data as well.
You deserve to lose it.
Yeah, you should be
in the
back in
cloud
it by now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for those that are in tech
Yes.
and for those that have embraced the modern technology. But for those that don't know any better, it's a critical part of their business. So, we touch on all those aspects when we're talking with a client in terms of either new to business or more traditional operating model where, sort of in terms of technology is all sort of desktop based, based in the office, that sort of stuff. So, we cover that wide spectrum, but while we're not experts in that stuff, we'll say, right, deal with these experts that we deal with, they're good, they'll look after you.
Because it struck me that as we have, you set up access granted for us, your accountant, much more than your lawyer, is probably the one touch base that a company will always have.
Yes.
Bank, accountant, they sort of come together hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they hate dealing with banks, but
Bankers.
Ralph's just got his hand up.
And I've dealt with most of them at some point. Yeah, and they're all quite, they have a common issue.
Yeah, I mean...
Go on then, what is it?
Well, the customer service.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
Just come to Kiwi Bank's awesome.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till you have to deal with business banking at Kiwi Bank.
See, when it comes to business banking, there you
I won't
go.
be doing that.
Bankers, the biggest issue is that they're very time poor, and having worked in a bank at some point in the past, banks go through various restructures. They think that a business advisor in the banking space should be able to look after 400 clients. That's just ridiculous. There's no way that one person can service that many clients and provide them with the sort of support and advice that they need. But if you can get a good business banker, you want to hang on to them because they're worth their weight in gold. If you've got a good relationship with them, they will work their butt off to get a deal across the line for you. So we talked about those new to business clients.
Yeah.
We talk. Some of those are franchisees, so they're buying into an existing business. So they've had to borrow some money to buy into that business. They haven't got 2 cents to rub together. They've certainly got no assets to secure the debt against. So the bank will provide them what's essentially an unsecured loan. And one of the examples from one of our clients, 22-year-old, who's going to lend money to a 22-year-old?
Right. Not me.
But working with ANZ in this case, and showing that this guy has actually got, I think he had 5 or 6 years of industry experience, so he knew the business inside out as a starting point, was going to be a good operator, and in terms of debt repayment, the duration was pretty short. I think we're talking 5 years. So, while it would, in terms of age, is normally a big cross on the application, the bank was able to work through that process and get that deal across the line.
Because of the relationship with the business advisor, the banking business advisor.
Because of that business advisor is ready to pull out all the stops to work for a client that they believe in. Obviously,
So
it
they
helps
must
when
have
you've got an
talked to
accountant.
them and got to know them better than the average advisor in clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah, spend some time with them.
The majority of people will deal with people on the front desk, the tellers, or they might have dealt with a retail banker when they've got a mortgage or something.
Yeah.
Dealing with a business banker, it's a completely different kettle of fish. These guys are a hell of a lot more knowledgeable. They know about business. They've got some good ideas as well. They're just very time poor because of the expectations that the banks put on them. And that's a common theme across all the banks.
How close would, and it's probably a question for you and your business, how close would you see yourself getting to a company? There's a point where, when we start, it's 2 people, great idea, 22-year-old. Idea becomes something that other people think is a great idea, it grows, I don't know, you've got 10 people, 15 people. At some point, someone has to take care of the finances and they suddenly become a CFO because they've just realised there's a title that goes with looking at everything. Is there a point where you just go, no, we don't want to do that, we can just outsource that?
Yeah, I mean, there are clients that we look after where we're doing more than just providing reports. So we might be assisting with running different aspects of their business. Or one example is an organisation where They collect credit card payments on behalf of their franchisees, so we manage that process. So the funds are going to a trust account. We're reconciling those funds with the data that's been collected and making sure that the franchisees are getting their appropriate payments every couple of weeks. There are aspects where we'll get more involved with the client's business, and for us, it's good to get further insight into a client's business. The more we know about a client's business, the more we can help them in terms of their growth and development.
And I think something like Xero, it just naturally brings you together because, for a start, you've got to say, I would like my accountant to have access to the books, please. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that, and then there's the collaboration part of it, or the communication part's all built in. So you're naturally getting closer, as opposed to, oh God, I've got to go and see the accountant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once a year.
Well,
with your shoebox of shit.
Yeah.
With Xero, generally the subscription is going to sit with the accountant anyway, so they've got access to that. Firstly, if you've got any queries, how do I do this? What am I doing here? Hang on, this isn't looking right. You can pick up the phone, Skype, come in and see them. But if it's over the internet or over the phone, then they're looking at exactly the same information as what you have got on your screen. And they can say, do this, do that, and boom, sorted. So that part of it means that using the system becomes real easy with your accountant. In terms of the collaboration, a good chartered accountant now should be looking at the information within a client system at least every couple of months as a minimum. So they should be looking at trends, looking at sales dips or headcount increases, those sorts of things. So your good chartered accountant should now be prompting discussion, not just
proactive.
waiting. Not just waiting for you to come in and say, "Oh, hang on, I've got no cash." Or, yeah, that's right. And one example that goes back a couple of years now with our client, we just saw that their sales just went off the edge of a cliff in the space of a couple of months. Literally dropped, I think it was about 15k in a couple of months on a monthly basis, and they'd been pretty consistent. So we saw that, and we're like, hey, spoke to the client, what's going on, and it turns out even they weren't aware that one of their clients, a wholesale client, had just stopped ordering from them.
Oh.
Wow, and they didn't realise.
They didn't realise it. But because you pay 20th of the month following, don't really notice it. There's someone else looking after the invoicing.
It's the money stuff. I'm doing things and being funky and growing businesses.
Yeah, that's right. So by being able to pick up that trend, we're quickly able to have a discussion with them, say, right, okay, well, we need to build up the sales, need to understand what's going on here. So the first thing they did was went back to the client and said, hey, what's going on? And they said, quality, you're not really happy with this aspect, Right. So they were able to put some processes in place to bring quality up, service delivery back up, and essentially they got those sales level back up to where they were with that client within 6 months. So, you sometimes a lot of people won't tell you when there's an issue. They'll just stop using your services.
Yes.
So, being able to look at information in real time, particularly if you're not dealing with it yourself day in, day out, can alert you to those sorts of issues before your business folds. In the traditional model, that happened, I think it was September, October time. Traditional model, accountant, past March, the accountant might have done the accounts in June or July or something. By the time you got the numbers, it might be nearly a year later.
That's right.
And by that time, the business is gone.
Yeah, that's right. This is why you failed. Brilliant. Wish I'd known that back then.
Yeah, 12 months ago.
Exactly.
Could have done something about it.
And now you can.
That's really cool.
So Xero...
So things have changed.
Yeah, allows for, as I said, a good chartered accountant should be looking for those flags, those opportunities, because they're looking at the data on a regular basis.
I'm going to go back to the change very briefly, though. There's a change in behaviour and almost status of chartered accountants, though, which is, you don't do that shit anymore, you do this stuff. And for them to change, to do that, is that something you think, they'll get there eventually, or is it there's going to be a whole bunch that are just not going to get it?
There is, and what's happening is my generation are just hoovering up the clients.
So it's
essentially.
happening now.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's a lot of people of my sort of age that have set up practices themselves, and they're operating with 5 to 10 people. And embracing the modern technology, providing those modern services to their clients, and they're picking up all those clients, including the older generation who have been with their accountant for 20 or 30 years because that accountant isn't embracing it. They're just leaving it out there.
That's amazing, eh?
Just reminds me of the print industry when people go digital. Some of the hardcore print practitioners don't.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're not working as much. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's happening everywhere, right?
It is. Software's eating the world. The final question I got then around that is and it comes back to that image, of accountants, and this is what they did, probably once a year, as you said, and I've got to take my stuff and probably get shouted at.
What's this?
Because your receipts aren't in envelopes named by month.
For not planning and not doing all the stuff that you
no
should
receipts
do.
and envelopes anymore.
It's like getting found out type stuff. There's still an image. I'm not saying everybody, but certainly for the young uns, the startups and stuff, it's that accountants, and I think they think KPMG, people in suits that are going to shout at me.
Yeah, well, I haven't worn a tie for 4 years, and perhaps longer than that. But you do need to find a modern accountant. Even the likes of the big fours you mentioned, the KPMGs, they are changing as well. But they're still looking after big corporates.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to provide that level of service that you need as a small, medium-sized business. Yep, they'll look after those big multinationals, no problem at all, deal with their tax issues and so on. But as a small, medium business, they'll charge you 5 times as much as...
And you're still a number to them anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Pun intended.
Yes.
And you're not going to get that level of service that you deserve.
Right.
So, you do need to find a modern chartered accountant who has embraced the technology and is working in a different sphere to those more traditional ones. How to find them? Xero is a good place to start.
Is there an online directory marketplace?
Yeah, there is. Within the Xero website, there's an Find Advisor tab, and you can search by geographical location.
Yeah.
So, if you're outside of Wellington, because if you're in Wellington, obviously search out All Accounted For.
Yeah, exactly. Come here, basically.
and we'll show you all the tricks in terms of your modern technology. But if you're outside, having said that, we look after a lot of clients around the country.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
It won't matter
That's the
anymore,
thing,
right?
With Skype and Xero, you're looking at stuff in real time. I'm probably up in Auckland every 6 to 8 weeks, dealing with the multitude of clients that we've got up there. We've got clients in the South Island and what have you. So geographical location is no longer key, but obviously if you want someone right on your door, then start with the Xero side of things and Find Advisor there.
For those that are now still listening, thinking, that's what my mum and dad does. I don't want to. What's the one thing you can say to them that says that if you do, this is the benefit you'll get?
Yeah, probably the biggest stat is businesses that have a good chartered accountant as their advisor, as their business advisor, generate something like about 110% more profit than those that don't.
There you go.
That's a nice number.
There you go.
So
You'd be mad not to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said right at the start, getting you on that journey, on the right path from the get-go, so you can focus on what you're good at. Bring that revenue in, get them to advise on all the other noise around, so that you've still got plenty of money to play with, but that you don't have to worry about it, and you can just focus on bringing the revenue in, bringing the clients on board, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Focusing, it allows a good financial advisor, a chartered accountant, will allow you to focus on what you're good at, and they'll give you a few tips and tricks, and your business will be booming in no time.
Excellent.
Nice. And so, if they were going to look up All Accounted For, what would be the best channels?
How would they get that? Can you say it slowly? What's the name of the...
So the name of the company is All Accounted For.
All Accounted For.
Yep.
Got it.
So if you put that into Google, I'm pretty sure we're at the top.
Nice.
Also, we've got a Facebook page. The website domain is www.aafl.nz, so acronym for All Accounted For Limited.
Yep.
and email address admin@afl.nz. Look for our blogs, sign up to our Facebook page. We have regular weekly blogs. The one last week, for example, we were talking about digital disruption and using those add-ons with Xero. So, yeah, we put some good, well, I said tips and tricks before, but that's pretty much what it is, and some key learnings that we're finding as we go through as well.
That's very cool.
And you can do video, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to start putting some videos up as well, probably a month or two away from that. But yeah, they'll start hitting the Facebook page and going on our website as well.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. That's a great little
Thank you so
session,
much. I've learned so much. 110% more.
Yeah.
Why would you not do it?
I know.
Why have I not done it? Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Raj.
No worries.
That was an excellent chat with Ben, I have to say. And that statistic is one all startups should remember when they huff and puff at the cost of professional advice. You will get it back in spades. In fact, it's a sensible investment. It's not a cost. Next week is a slightly delayed rant from the ever-wonderful Mauricio of Geek Zone. So grab yourself a beer or a wine or an orange juice and play the Access Granted rant drinking game along with us. Find us on the social networks. Look for the podcast on Twitter @AccessGrantedNZ and on Facebook. Best way to chat with us is to use Twitter. I'm on @MiramarMike.
And mine is @NZRaj.
And rate us in iTunes. You can add comments, but please rate us. It helps us be found and share the love with others. So thanks for your time and your ratings, and see you next Tuesday with the Kiwi tech people sharing their own stories. Ka kite anō.
#me.co.nz